So I wanted to use story to change the meaning of that title and to change the meaning of that reality and that observation into something that the next time exhausted came up or the next time someone would feel that or think that, it would actually be a reminder that you're not here just to survive. You're here to thrive. And what does that look like for you?
Welcome to Parent Footprint with Dr. Dan. I'm Dr. Dan. This show is about making the world a more loving, accepting, and compassionate place, one parent, one person, and one child at a time. The key to raising healthy and engaged kids is for parents to seek the same in their own lives while striving to be the best versions of themselves each day. No matter who you are or where you came from, with increased awareness, you can be purposeful about leaving a healthy footprint for your children, your family, and all those you care about while living your own life to the fullest. Today's show is Black Girls Must Die Exhausted, Embracing the Complexity of Life and Love with our amazing guest, Jayne Allen. Jayne, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm going to tell everyone a little bit more about you because there's a lot to tell. So Jayne is most widely known as a fiction author under the pen name Jayne Allen, having authored Black Girls Must Die Exhausted, which we're going to talk about, Black Girls Must Be Magic, and a forthcoming third title published by the Harper Perennial imprint of HarperCollins Books. Stay tuned. Okay, now, Jayne is also Jaunique Sealey. Jaunique has a broad range of experience in business and brand architecture, digital strategy, marketing, and product innovation. She's a graduate of Duke University Pratt School of Engineering and Harvard Law School. Her professional career began as a music attorney and in the entertainment industry executive, followed by a period of senior digital strategist and business development executive for Lady Gaga. Yes, Lady Gaga, assisting with the platinum album release Born This Way, and executive producing the Gaga's Workshop digital experience in Barneys, New York, that won so many music awards. She's also worked with the artist formerly known as Prince, who we all miss, and she has done so much more. Jayne, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation.
So I loved your book. I did, as you wrote in the beginning of the book, become very acquainted and friendly with many of your characters. And we're going to talk about that. But I just want to say I was on the ride. I was so on the journey to the very end.
It.
And
that's so great.
Yeah, it was riveting. We're going to talk about Tabby and her friends, also known as number 2. Before we go there, tell us a little bit about like where you came from, your upbringing, and how your formative years.
Well, I'm originally from Michigan, so I'm a Midwestern girl. I was born in Detroit, grew up in Detroit, and I'm an only child, so that might be. So I did a lot of reading, and I found a lot of adventure and life lessons in books, and I always believed that people put the best parts of themselves in books. So even as a little girl, and I was just a voracious reader, and I guess quite talkative. And I spent a lot of time around adults and with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. She didn't live with us, but we were really close. She lived very close by, and so that was a lot of my social life as a young child. And just, I was very academic and kind of did what I was thought I was supposed to do academically, and kind of kept in the between 10 and 2 on the clock in terms of not really venturing out too wildly or creatively until I got a little bit older. So I was probably, you would if you met me when I was a kid, you'd probably think, oh, she's chatty, or she seems like a nice girl, but I don't know if I would necessarily stand out
You were following the rules. You were kind of
I
following the
was
rules.
definitely
Yeah.
following the rules. Even in retrospect, I was like, wow, I didn't even really drink when I was in, like, I didn't do
Yeah.
anything that was
Yeah.
particularly bad. I could tell my mom that to her face now at
Yeah.
43. Like, no, I
Yeah.
think I actually was a good kid. So that's how I was
Yeah.
growing up, I think.
What were your hopes and dreams back then? Because at 43, you have done so much, and there is so much more you clearly are going to be doing. So I was just thinking, like, that little girl, right? That little girl reading books. Like, what did you want to be?
I think there were so many things. There was one point when I wanted to be an astronaut, and there was an article about it in the local newspaper because I
Mm,
went to space camp. But there was a one point I wanted to be a singer.
mm,
Uh, there was one point where I wanted to have a talk show.
yeah.
Uh, so I think I always wanted to express and
Hmm.
communicate with people through, creatively. And it took me a very long time to figure out my road to do that because I was definitely tracked in this conventional,
Yeah.
traditional
Yeah.
path.
Yeah.
So I had to unlearn that over
Yeah.
time.
Well, I mean, you were clearly, well, a few things that I got from preparing for this is, I mean, obviously you're very bright, you're very good at school. You also have this full package because, engineering to law to music to writing, I mean, basically to creativity and brand consulting and beyond. I could see the metamorphosis. Um, and what is that process like for you from stepping out of the
Yes.
line and doing it your way?
Yes. Well, I think that I can tell you exactly when that happened.
Mm,
I now in retrospect, when I was in law school. So I was definitely doing the conventional thing and what I thought needed to be done or what should be done conventionally. And it was my first year of law school, maybe my second year of law school. I can't quite remember. And 9/11 happened in my second year of law school.
mm,
And that when you have one of those traumatic events in life, it makes you start to
mhm.
think about life
Yeah.
and really look at it and examine, am I doing what I should be doing with this time that I have? And so that triggered that for me. That was the
Mhm.
first question. The second thing that happened was that I wound up getting a permanent offer after the summer of following my first year, which was unusual for at a
Mhm.
law firm. But then at that point, the rest of my life, if I followed that track, was already set. I could know at 23 years old exactly what the rest of my life would look like. I would go to this firm for 8 years. I'd be an associate. I'd work my butt off and have no life. And then I would be a partner and then I'd be rich, but I would be too busy to spend my money.
Yeah.
That was that was what
Yeah.
my life would look like. And I didn't like that. I didn't like being able to look ahead. I didn't like being able, yes, the thing that you're supposed to, everybody wants that financial security. That thing was guaranteed for me at that point, but I didn't like what the rest of it looked like.
Mm.
And so at 23, I was able to kind of see ahead and internalize and get some perspective. And so I remember sitting on my sofa one day and just asking myself, if that's not going to make you happy, what will? And
Mm.
I just started imagining. And at that moment, what I wanted was to work at a record label, but not a big one, a smaller one, and not in New York, not in LA. I wanted to be in DC. I just made this up in my
Yeah.
mind. There'd be
Yeah.
a recording studio and I'd be around musicians. And I just had this whole fantasy in my mind. So fast forward about 3 weeks from that, I go to this panel, as like a music industry panel. A bunch of people came in to speak. One guy's in the panel talking about his record company. It's like a startup company that just got funded in DC that has a record studio and a recording studio in the office and all of this stuff that I start hearing back what my imagination had like conceived of on my sofa. And so that was my first moment where I was like, wait, my dreams can come true. Like I can live my dreams out. But I had to go talk to him. And I said, hey, would you ever hire somebody fresh out of law school? And he was like, no way. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, would you hire somebody who would work for free? I was just
Yeah.
grasping. He was like, well, let's just talk. We'll stay in touch. And so I wound up spending a year interning for him that second summer because I told you I had the job offer. I
Yeah.
was able to split my summer. So I had to go back to my firm for half the summer, and I spent half the summer at this record label working for free. By the end of the time, that second half of the summer at the record company, I had to go back to school. I was like, what are you guys going to do? I have to go back. I had made a place for myself. And they
Hmm.
said, well, look, would you consider still working for us and we can figure it out? So we negotiated that I would work there my third year as an employee. They'd pay for my travel back and forth. They'd pay me a salary, and they made me a permanent offer to join after law school. So all of that came kind of full
Wow.
circle. And that was my first experience with crafting my life and really realizing I could step off the path
Yeah.
and start to live what, even questioning what fulfillment looked like, and that I could live that out. So that's where
You
it started.
you manifested that whole thing.
That is what happened. Yeah,
Yes.
that is exactly what happened.
Everyone, it is possible. Like it literally, like if you can imagine what your desired life is and really think it and believe it, things do happen.
They
That's just
do.
awesome. Yeah.
But the one thing I say when I tell this story is that I did have to do something. I had to. I was scared out of my wits, to be honest, to go talk to
Hmm.
him because that was not like me.
Hmm.
And then when he told me no, it wasn't just there laid out in front of me. I had to get past my own internal obstacles. And so when he told me no, with somebody that's kind of conventional and follows the rules, no is like, oh, well, that's a stopping point. But for whatever reason, because I had
Hmm.
seen it before in my mind and I knew
Yeah.
that was what I wanted, I
Yeah.
just scrambled to find a way past no in that moment, which
Yeah.
ultimately wound up getting me past no.
Right.
So,
Right.
um, yeah, so there is something to it. And, I've had to develop my relationship with no over
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
And that's been an evolving journey. And I think, for all people, it probably is there's somewhere on that journey as well.
Yes, yes, and that reminds me. I didn't mention and want to mention because it's so appropriate. I mean, we're going to be talking about your fiction work, but you have these nonfiction books with
I
very much
do.
relate to these topics. So I just want to mention to everyone the titles, which are Regroup, The How To of Never Giving Up, right? This applies.
You went
P-
deep in the crates.
yes, I did. Piece of the Fame, Rockstar Social Media Marketing Strategy for Everyone to Ignite Your Business, Career, and Personal Brand, right? So, you share a lot of your own experiences in those works in your consulting part of your life with how people not to say no, how to battle perfectionism, right? How to
Yes.
take all this on as like badges of courage.
Yes. Yes. My nonfiction. So what I was doing was, and I didn't realize it, I just was following, kind of what I felt was an important thing to do. And honestly, my life has been incredible. I'm so grateful for the experiences I've gotten to live and the lessons I've been able to learn. So my way of giving back in the middle, between one project to the next, I'd have
Mhm.
maybe a month of downtime. And so I'd write a book to encapsulate whatever the most important lesson was that I thought I learned of that path, that experience. With Lady Gaga in that time, personal branding, social media, and this was back in like 2012, and I was like, this is going to be a big deal.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I put the best of what I learned in that experience into that book and then move forward. And from the starting companies and architecting brand strategy, entrepreneurial strategy, and doing sort of this startup,
right.
company space, being in that space, the number one lesson that I learned was the lesson of resilience. And I learned that it's a skill. It's a skill that we don't teach and that we don't really spend a lot of time on. But I tried to encapsulate that concept of resilience as a skill, and also developing that relationship with no, and how to move forward into what you really, really want. Because to me, aside from branding and using social media, which has been an incredible society shifter,
Hmm.
resilience as a skill and as a tool has been one of the things that has really allowed me to live out what has been my path to fulfillment. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
put the best of myself in books along the way.
It's so resiliency. We often talk about resiliency as the cornerstone of well, I want to say love, which we'll be talking about, is the cornerstone
Yes.
of humanity. Resiliency, like if one can be resilient, you can get through anything. You can get
Yes.
through all the tough stuff, all the curveballs, right? I mean, it all comes down to this well, but I'm not going to define it. I'd like you to define it. How would you define what resiliency is?
I believe it is a process of acceptance and learning and unfettered belief. And those are the three ingredients.
Hmm.
So accepting whatever happened, and making your attempt,
Mhm.
so, and then accepting whatever happened, learning the lessons, and then reconnecting to what your original goal was with a belief that you move forward. And it's just an iterative process. And so
Mhm.
that's what I believe resilience, having resiliency is. And I do think it's a skill. And the more that I spend
Mhm.
time around entrepreneurs, the more, I speak to people who kind of are living these fearless lives. I hear the same thing over and over, to the point where I see it as a pattern. And I'm like, we don't speak of it as a skill, but these people have developed a skill.
Yes. Yes, and so you just triggered something to me in your book. There's some great stuff that you say in the beginning with a note to the reader, and one of the things that I highlighted, which so applies, is you say, "quote If you understand that every day is a great triumph, a victory over all of the forces that would try to tear you down." Then you understand how very important it is to celebrate everything that gives us the courage to keep daring for our greatest selves.
Yes. Yes, that's in my note to reader for
Yeah.
Black Girls Must Die Exhausted. I thought that was really important to say and contextualize, the adventure, the journey of the book,
Yeah.
and what we could learn from our protagonist Tabitha. So
Yeah. And it's resilience, right? I
yes,
mean, that is a story of resilience. So let's start moving in this direction. So the process of creating this book. So I'd like to know the process for you of creating this first piece of fiction for you, where you took on
yes,
so many different issues. And then also, I'm so curious about the title and how many iterations it had, because the ending title is like that just punches you right in the face, and you're like, "Let's go."
yeah. Well, the process of coming up with this book. So this was my first foray into fiction. I had never written fiction. I think a lot of times thinking about writing a novel, there's a lot of imposter syndrome and thinking, oh, am I an author in this way? Can I do this? You think of it, and I guess if you're, maybe not everybody, but I think of it as like, as this anointing.
Hmm.
People that craft novels, there must be some kind of magic fairy dust that got sprinkled on them as a kid or something, and then they write this novel. So I was believing that, but the concept felt so strong for me that I was able to push back against it. And the way that the idea came to me was in 2016. We were in this, very divisive political environment, but
Hmm.
as a woman, it was this objectively big moment where it was like, maybe we're going to have the first woman president, and just thinking about, the societal constraints or not of being a
Hmm.
woman, having the experience of womanhood in the society. And I was thinking about that, and also thinking about what it was, the layer of experience of being a Black woman in
Hmm.
society,
Hmm.
from a human perspective, like what is the human effect of this? And for me, it was exhausting. I felt
Right.
exhausted.
Yeah.
And it was just so much. It was like, I don't feel safe. I don't feel seen. I don't feel protected. And I'm showing up every day suited up to play,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm doing my best. And why don't I have this? And
Mm-hmm.
how does it make me feel? It makes me feel exhausted. And I thought, wow, if I feel this way, I know a lot of other people, other women, other Black women, non-Black women, non-Black people, men have to feel some piece of this on the spectrum of this. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to address it. And I think it's important to address as a Black woman because there's a perspective that anybody can learn from. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to acknowledge it from the various layers that I'm living in this human experience. And the weight of it can maybe amplify this experience, and show something to everybody that we can learn from. So if I can
Mm-hmm.
unpack this, if I can amplify this and make it seen, and go on a journey with this, then it's something we can all learn from.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what I tasked myself with. I wanted to tell a human story, get to the very human story of what this experience was for this character, and the center a Black female protagonist who could see things from the perspective that I was seeing things from. So that was how the idea came about. And the title, we started with this word exhausted. When I was thinking about the title, I wanted it to be something that just felt like you'd heard it before, even if you hadn't, because I was
Mm.
making it up. But I
Yeah.
wanted this like iconic title that just stood for a truth that then I could change the meaning of. So it was this acknowledgement of this exhaustion. It was
Yeah.
exhausting.
Yeah.
But and the contextualization, like I was telling you before with that story, contextualization of life with perspective. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not about death, but death gives us this context, the fact that life is finite. It makes you think, like I was giving the example of 9/11. It's a moment that makes you think, wait, what am I going to do with this time? This time is valuable. It's
Yeah.
not fine. It's not infinite. It's
Right.
valuable. And
Right.
what am I doing with it? So the title came from that we're going to contextualize life from the perspective of how do we make this valuable, and the exhausted part, the exhausted part,
Yeah.
how do I change the meaning of this to turn this into uh, going from a place of survival to thriving?
Mm-hmm.
How do I? And so I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to use story to
Yeah.
change the meaning of that title and to change the meaning of that reality and that observation into something that the next time exhausted came up, or the next time someone would feel that or think that, it would actually be a reminder that you're not here just to survive. You're here to thrive. And what does that
Yeah.
look like for you?
Yeah. Yeah. That and I got that. I mean, I got that when the title, to me, it also made me think about things as I was reading with the frame of exhaustion of the characters, the various
Yeah.
characters, and each of their different stories and all of the different levels of exhaustion in being them and all of the forces that they were, their past, their present, and the challenges they went through. And I also I was thinking of this title in my head. It's like, why women die exhausted and Black
Yes.
women die more exhausted, right?
Right.
Because you talk about the layer of, obviously the layer of race. And I want the scene with when Tabitha gets pulled over on
Yeah.
her way to the news station, and the way you described that level of fear. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, my heart was racing, and I was experiencing so many different emotions. And then the interaction with the officer and how you position the officer. I mean, like, you captured so much of what has been going on for a long time, and just more in the
Hmm.
news lately.
Yeah, I thought that was important. And that was a scene for me as a writer where it really means a lot to me to hear you say that you could connect emotionally, because I think we live in this fallacy that we can't connect to each other. We can't relate to each other's experiences because we haven't been living the same experience. No, like, we are human beings. pain feels like pain. Pain to me feels like pain to you. It does. Even though we seem different, we're not. At the core,
Yeah.
we're not. Fear
Yeah.
to me feels like fear to you. It's that is the same thing. Even if something different causes it, it's still the same feeling. And I think to just be able to connect from a human perspective and bring the humanity into that, the feeling is fear. The feeling is, and there's I have a friend. She is a fellow writer. She's not American. She's not Black. She's a white woman that lives in Germany at the German-French border. First language is French, and she's married to a woman. And so she is a writer friend of mine, and I sent her that first chapter when I was first writing this novel, and I didn't know. I was like, "Can I write? Is this any good? What does this mean to you? I have no idea." So I sent it to her. I was like, "Hey, can you let me know what you think of this?" I didn't contextualize it. I just sent it, and she got back to me a couple of days later, and she said, "Oh my gosh, is this how Black people feel in America?" And I was like, "Well, I can't speak for all Black people, but tell me what you mean. What are you referencing? What came up?" And she's like, "Well, I obviously don't have direct experience, but I'll tell you what it recalled for me and what I was feeling into." She said, as a woman with her wife, if they're out walking on the street, they decide in any way to evidence their relationship, they hold hands, they show any sign of affection, they know, they've internalized that they are now at risk for some kind of some form of maybe being accosted from a direction they don't know of in an undeserved way. And they have to walk knowing that and not and anticipating that and being in that space. And that is what she referenced as the connection point into what Tabitha was feeling and experiencing in that first chapter. And I was like, yes, it's there. And that moment of just, I mean, it couldn't be more different experience wise, couldn't be more, but yes. And yes, that human connection. Yes, we're speaking the same vocabulary. Yes. Let's talk from that space. Let's talk from the space of what it feels like. And so that it was so magical to hear that back. And it just let me know, if I do this right, if I, this can connect people in unexpected ways. So that kind of set the tone for me.
You write about women in the workplace. You write about race. You write about infertility. You write about complex relationships and love. You write about mental health. So much is in there in a story, a journey with these characters. And I've never written. I've only written nonfiction. So I know in my work I draw on my own experiences quite a bit, and so I'm just wondering for you, like how much of you is, in pieces of, like what was your process of creating these characters in the story? Like what part is you, what part is, others?
Yes.
If that's a fair question.
Yeah. Well, I kind of wanted to do something different when I was writing this. And there's a lot of issues because I wanted to do something. I wanted to use fiction in a different way. I wanted to use fiction to create like life parallel scenarios, but push the characters further than most people would go and then see what happens on the other side. So the only other place we kind of get that is maybe reality TV, where, people are cast for certain personality quirks and then the producers create scenarios that then, play out, and it's unscripted because who could have scripted that? Who would have known, who'd have known that was going to happen? And so that was kind of how I went to write. I was like, well, let me really, really focus on crafting these characters as textured and as humanely and as humanly as I can, and give a motivation and a backstory and a real true understanding of who these people are and craft them as close to people as I could. And then put them in scenarios and push them past the boundaries of where most people would go, and then see what happens and how it plays out. So that was what was really fun for me to write, because I didn't know what was going to happen. I just, kind of cast these characters, crafted these characters. So for me, it was two important things in character crafting or casting, was that I wanted to make sure that they had the texture of real people. And so what part of me comes into it is that I'm an observer. I'm a listener. I will
Mm-hmm.
listen. I'm the person that if I'm on a plane, my seat neighbor, by the end of the flight, I know their whole life story.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't put my headphones on. Even if I do put my headphones on, for whatever reason, they're still going to talk to me.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to listen. And I
Yeah.
realize that is part of my role in life. Maybe my part of my role is to be the observer, and then as an artist to give that back in a way that connects us more to each other and to our experience of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was what I tried to bring into crafting these characters. They're all made up. There's nobody's made up an archetype of another person that exists. I've
Yep.
made all of these people up, but I did sew in fragments of people I've met or what I've come to understand about people
Yeah.
and motivation and humanity, so that they would feel real and they would be real, or as real as I could make it, as
Yeah.
these scenarios played out and these conversations happened. And with Tabitha, I felt like it was important to show this things that we don't normally see. And I went through my own journey through infertility and IVF and egg freezing and all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
I could not find hardly anything about this journey. And in fiction, virtually nothing. And it's so important to see stories in fiction because it allows us to see things played out that maybe haven't played out yet in life, but we can still learn from them. We can still gain courage from them.
Yeah.
So I thought, let me do this for Tabitha and also she's a very conventional person. So I had to
Mm-hmm.
throw the kitchen sink at her to get
Yeah.
her off the conventional path.
Yeah. You
I'm so
did. You
sorry.
did. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so sorry because I like you. I
Yeah.
really like her, but I was like, as a writer, my job is to get you
Yeah.
off the path. So I really had to throw a
Huh.
lot at her and a lot at these characters to kind of break past the walls of convention and get to the vulnerable human part and get to the human story. So
Wow. Yeah.
that's where it came from.
That's such an interesting process to think about it that way. As I've got to know the characters in Tabitha, and yeah, you threw a lot at her, and she had to dig deep, and she perseveres, and she loses it, and she comes back around. Like she
Right.
does all that human stuff, and it's like to think about you creating this in a way where it is almost like a reality TV show, and you're like, okay. Tabitha's going to walk into this place, and now this is going to happen, and let's see what she does. And
Yes.
and then
That's
you're
what
like,
happened. That's what I
right, and
did.
then you're creating what she does. Wow.
Yes. Yes.
Huh.
Yeah. So it made it fun for me to write because I didn't know exactly what was going to happen. I just kind of set the scenes. I set them in place. I knew the characters, they have their own conflicts with each other. And
Yeah.
so for me writing it, I almost felt like a fly on the wall, kind of like, okay, how is this going to play out? Because the characters were so formed in my mind as
Mm-hmm.
people. And
Yeah.
for me as a writer, my goal would be, I guess, for a reader, if you happen to just walk into a
Mm-hmm.
room and one of my characters was there, I would want the reader to know who that person was.
Mm.
That's the standard I was setting for character development.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's cool. I'm now thinking back of all the scenes. You also, I mean, you took all these on. I want to say, like, I felt like hard stuff in a really respectful way. Um, and really just talked about the complexity of it. I mean, interracial relationships and marriages and intergenerational relationships that were interracial, and just the complexity of being kin
Yes.
and not seeing color because of that's your kin, and then the backdrop of how the world sees you and
Right.
trying to make sense of those. I mean, the relationship with Tabitha and her grandmother, which is why she's
Right.
number two, was like, I mean, so beautiful.
I wanted to show again the human impact of these societal creations that we've made that make us believe that we're so different from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really important in this
Mm-hmm.
time, especially as we're trying to find our way back to each other because of, there's been so much divisiveness and there still is
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
ideologically, there's divisiveness and, all of these ways that we are starting to believe that we're so different, but we're not. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we're just in this space and time where we want so badly to be reconnected and to find our ways back to each other. And so, here's this space of this family, and Tabby's grandmother's white and Tabby is black, but that's not relevant in their relationship other than how they've experienced these societal, definitions and societal experiences that have happened to them in various ways. And so Tabby's grandmother has intersected with the experience of race differently because she has a black son, and as a white mother, and her family had a different view of her relationship that ultimately resulted in Tabby's father being conceived. And there's so much history there, and but even I think the complexity is really very simple once
Mm-hmm.
you start looking at it from a human perspective. And then you just
Mm-hmm.
ask, what's the human impact? What's Tabby's grandmother feeling? And what does this do for her? What does this teach her?
Mm-hmm.
What does
Mm-hmm.
this make her, what questions does it make her ask?
Yeah.
And what does love give you the courage to do and say?
Yes. Yes.
And so that was kind of how I went into the interactions with Tabby and her grandmother, and examining all of these issues, which, it seems like there are a lot of issues and it seems like they're complex, but ultimately from the human experience standpoint, you're just going back to that. What is it? What
Right.
questions does it cause you to ask? What lessons does it teach you? And what does love give you the courage to do?
And that's exactly what it was. I mean, the courage, the love is what allowed them to ask each other the tough questions and really sit there and be in those questions and answers for each other.
Yes.
Um, Also, in the note to the reader, there were just a few things that impacted me, and I want to read this too, relates to what you just said. When you strip away the divides, barriers, categories, and all of the various ways we've learned to separate ourselves one from another, at our foundation, love is the language that we speak and the very lifeblood of our existence.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Pause. Are you surprised by the impact that this book has had?
I am surprised in every conversation to see how it is personalized by a reader. And that was the thing that really I I I knew, but I didn't know. I didn't understand how personal a book experience can become, and what
Mm-hmm.
it becomes something completely different in the mind or experience of each person. So I'm constantly surprised because it's such a collaboration with between me and the reader. I put this in motion. The words are on the page, but ultimately it doesn't become three-dimensional until it's absorbed and experienced by a reader. So to hear it back, it has
Mm-hmm.
never been the exact same thing. And I've talked to many, many readers at this point, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
always surprised at how it becomes personalized and what the story becomes with
Mm-hmm.
each person that experiences it. And so I hope to always have that delight and to always have that next level that teaches me something.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that it could be impactful because, as I was saying, I try to put the best of myself and what I hope for all of us. I'm rooting for, like I said, I'm rooting for each one of my characters, but I'm
Yeah.
actually rooting for each person I meet. I'm rooting
Mm.
for everybody. And so with this book, this is me being a cheering section. So I hope that it will have positive impact, and it brings something
Mm-hmm.
substantive to people's lives that come across the book.
And it clearly has, because there's a whole BGMDE community out there.
Yes.
And I mean, just give a few, if you can. I know there's so many people you've talked to. Like, what has this book, what have you heard has done for people in terms of you being their cheerleader and, opening up possibility for them and fight for them?
Yes. Well, I had the opportunity in 2020 to sit with a lot of book clubs and talk to a lot of different
Yeah.
groups of women, and I was surprised at what the different things that came up in conversation. For some people, it was like the first time that they were able were able to talk about their infertility journeys and their
Mhm.
journeys through reproductive health, which to me was astonishing because it impacts so many women, so many
Mhm.
people, and it's not discussed. It's sort of something that happens in the shadows, and it's so important to have information and support, and because it's a journey that is impacted by knowledge and
Mhm.
time. These are all things that are so relevant. So to know that there are so many people that didn't have community before, and just to hear in these spaces that it's just opening up that conversation, that has been incredible. To hear people have a vocabulary to talk and to connect about race, and to just talk about what does it feel like, and not, it's so triggering. And so, but we do need a space to talk about it, and we do need a space to be able to support each other, and to understand what does that look like. And
Mhm.
everybody doesn't have the bandwidth to talk about it, to be emotionally available in that way, or to do what we call the emotional labor of it. But I wanted a book that could do that, where
Mhm.
maybe somebody can't talk about it, but they can say, here, read this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And from one person to another, and it has been very much word of mouth uh, community building here. So those have been some of the and just talking about friendship, just hearing people talk about, because everybody's hiding something in the book.
Yes.
It's a
Yes.
very imperfect friendships, but
Yes.
yet they still are sustaining, and they still are so valuable and important. So to be
Yeah.
able to hear other people kind of come clean with their journeys, and even through mental health as well, just talking about having a space to be vulnerable and to seek community and support about certain things that were kind of people were shouldering on their own. Those have
Yeah.
been some of the most impactful
Yeah.
moments
Yeah.
in conversations I've been a part of.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone, you are not only is Tabitha an awesome protagonist, you are definitely going to want to meet Lexi and Layla.
Oh,
Um,
yes. And Ms. Gretchen.
and Miss Gretchen too. Yes, let's not forget Miss Gretchen. Yeah. Oh man, Miss Gretchen. Okay. Okay. So, in seeing you on Good Morning America, one of the hosts talked about how you just beam and how you
Oh,
basically glow. And I'm looking at you; other people can't see you, and you do. And you have
oh,
this
thank you.
way of. I can understand why people want to talk to you on the planes, right? I mean, you just have a very openness and exuberance, and like it makes me want to know, like, what is your what is your life philosophy at this point? Like, how do you aim to be?
I aim, there are days, it's different days,
Yeah.
but I aim to be fearless.
Mm.
That's what I'm working on right now. I think as a artist, my only job is to be fearless. So, whatever I create or produce or write or whatever needs to come from that place of fearlessness. And life that entails also living life in that way as well. So I'm
Mhm.
working on that. I'm working on loving fearlessly
Mm.
also. And not just on a, personal relationship basis, but just like I said, I'm genuinely rooting for everybody that I meet, and also for myself, loving myself
Mhm.
fearlessly, accepting myself, finding authenticity, and finding ways to be more authentic and just showing up that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a long-winded answer, I think,
Awesome.
but it's
No,
still
that's
a work
that
in progress. But that's where I
yes.
am right now.
Being fearless and loving fearlessly, everyone. Listen to that. Jane's our guide here. Yes. And yeah, that's a daily task, right? That's a moment by moment task to really be
It is.
conscious about that. And what a journey for you as someone who knows what it's like to have high expectations and follow rules. To step out and to dare, it takes a lot of courage to step outside the lines and just go for it. And so I commend you on
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah. All right. It's time, Jayne, it's time for the parent footprint moment question. So here it is. Tell us about a time that you became aware of yourself as an individual and awareness about yourself as a parent, awareness of your parents, and how any of these awarenesses had a positive impact on your life and those you love.
Well, I can say that doing egg freezing and the IVF process, and I actually wound up freezing embryos, which is a whole nother story for another day.
Mm-hmm.
But that was an awareness of parenting or being a parent or pre-parenting that I didn't expect in that experience, because your body goes through, and I did it as a older woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to do so much body care, so vitamin supplementation, and thinking about every little thing that I did, and not drinking, and all of these things. And it's such a sacrifice, and it made me aware of the sacrifice even more of my parents and my mother, especially a woman. You sacrificing your body, and not just in being pregnant and in pregnancy, but after. And then as a parent, you're sacrificing your body. It's a self-sacrificial process. And I wrote something about that in the book, about trying to describe that, and what love is, and the connection of sacrifice to love. So that was something that gave me that insight a bit, and also gave me an awareness to have a better understanding of what I've experienced having been parented, being parented, and what that is.
Thank you. And for telling the story. We've had close people to us go through the IVF and infertility journey, and it is a hard one, a stressful one, an expensive one, an unknowing one, an uncertain one. And so thank you for sharing this part of yourself and this part of life that so many do experience.
My pleasure. My pleasure to do it.
Well, everyone, that concludes our show. Jayne, where can everyone find this book, your coming next book, and everything else you're doing that you want them to know?
Well, thank you. So Black Girls Must Die Exhausted is everywhere books are sold and borrowed at this point, I do believe. And if you're in your local bookstore and don't see it, then I'm sure they will be able to order it for you. But it's the current Target October Diverse Read Book Club pick. And awesome. It is, yes. And we have amazing independent bookstore partners, and libraries have been so supportive. So hopefully you can find it anywhere and everywhere. I was so excited to see it in the airport. That was like a big moment for me. I was going from LAX, Los Angeles to New York and JFK, and I saw it in both airports. And I was just taking pictures.
Huge.
I was
huge.
Over the moon. Yeah, I know people thought, like, what is this crazy woman doing? But I was I was taking pictures at the store. But I was so excited. I am my website is Jayne with a Y, Jayne Allen, 2 L's, ALLEN.com. And you can join my newsletter and keep up with whatever random developments are happening. And I'm on Instagram most frequently as Jayne Allen Writes. So book 2 is scheduled for February. It's called Black Girls Must Be Magic. And it is the continuation of Tabby's journey, along with all of the colorful friends and family and colleagues that you've come to meet in the first book.
Okay, so does that mean we get to have a follow-up conversation about Tabby's journey?
I would love that.
Okay,
I would love
awesome. That. I'm excited. I'm excited because you left us hanging a little bit. So
a little. I tried to give enough where nobody would be mad, but
no, I wasn't mad.
There's still more. There's still more.
There's definitely more. Thanks again, Jayne.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone, that's it. Please share this show with everyone who will benefit. Thank you for being a part of our wonderful community. And if you want more of Parent Footprint with Dr. Dan, check out our bonus episodes once a month exclusively on Stitcher Premium. To listen, just go to stitcherpremium.com/Dr. Dan, click Start Free Trial, select a monthly plan, and sign up with the code Dr. Dan, and you'll get a month of free listening. Be that person you want your child to become. And as always, I'll leave you with the guiding question: what footprint do you want to leave? This has been a Peters and Rossi production. Parent Footprint with Dr. Dan is produced by Laura Rossi. Our engineer is Phil Rossi. Theme music is Strummerman, composed and performed by Pro Tunes. Artwork is by Garrett Ross. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Parent Footprint Podcast and on Twitter at Dr. Dan Peters. If you are an advertiser interested in advertising on our show, go to midroll.com/ads. For more information, go to exactlyrightmedia.com. Listen, subscribe, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.